Alright, so here is a fraction of why I think Black Lives Matter and feminism were doomed movements from the start. Okay, so I think it's pretty clear for most people at this point that the casual Black Lives Matter supporters and the casual feminists aren't really the problem. It's the extremists. But here's why, and I'm going to focus almost exclusively on the names of these movements at this point. Here's why just the names, not even what the movement represents, the actual definitions and stuff, not even what that is. I've done a linguistics breakdown of feminism before. But here's why just the names of these movements are a problem. And why you see the same people, the same sorts of extremists in both movements. It's literally only because of the name. The extremists are coming to a movement because the extremists are, by name, they are the misandrists. They are the black supremacists. And that's why they go to it, because the name gives them an out to make it about what they want. They abuse the movement because of its name. They wouldn't be able to get away with that in something like Meninism, because, although that's a parody anyways, but I'm using that as an example. They wouldn't be able to get away with something like that in the Meninism or the egalitarian community or something, because it's not... I don't want to say it, but it's true. It's biased by name. It's a movement for very specific people with a very specific cause. And no matter what kind of movement you get, if you name it something that has a very specific connotation of a very specific group, there will be people of that group who use it to exclusively advance that group and discriminate against the opposite of that group, i.e. how the extremist Black Lives Matter supporters are using it to be discriminatory against other races, and mainly whites, and how the extremists of the feminist community are using it to only further what they believe is women's equality, masked as, but they're really just pushing misandry. They're sexist women who join a movement because it says, hey, we're about women. They don't look past that. They don't look at the definition where it's, although, mind you, I do believe the definition is a little biased, but I've literally debunked the whole definition based on, just linguistics alone, that it's not even really a doctrine. It's by definition, it's activism. But I have another video of that elsewhere. But they use it because it has femme in the title. They abuse this because of the word. They flock to this movement because they think, you know what? This is the movement for me. It's for females, and whatever the definition says, I don't care, because I know I can use this to push my ideology of hating men and of getting women whatever they want without really thinking rationally about it. And it's the same for Black Matter. You have black extremists and white extremists who hate their own race because of the name. It's because of the name. It's partially because of the name. That's why they initially go there. Because it's all about the black community or all about the female community. And they feel accepted. They incept themselves into a movement of non-extremists, and they take it over. And that's how you get ruined movements. When you don't recognize that just by name you're going to attract extremists that identify with the name of the movement, and they're going to be the ones who are the most prominent, the loudest, the most hateful, the most pseudo-logical, and you're going to gain followers. And then more and more will incept themselves, and you'll have a hijacked movement like feminism and like Black Lives Matter. So that's just part of the explanation from just the name alone. that I see. Extremists flock to groups with names that they can identify with to push the extremist views they believe. It was bound to happen eventually. And I'm at least glad that feminism and Black Lives Matter started out doing more good than evil. I'm glad that feminism did have a good number of decades of progress before they were hijacked by first world misandrous sexists. I'm glad that Black Lives Matter did start out pushing equality instead of just white hate narratives. So, you know, to the people who originally were part of it, that were moderates, were actually pushing equality, thank you. But your movements, it's not even that your movement's dying. It's that it's being hijacked by people who, they're not going to let it go. You're going to have to move. They're the loudest, hateful, the loudest, most easily advertised in your group. And that's why they get a bad name. Because the loudest, most impactful majority who are actually doing horrible things and propagating horrible material are the ones speaking the loudest in your community. If you want any sort of chance of actually claiming Black Lives Matter back or feminism back for actual equality, you have to silence these people, mind you, not by force, but mainly you have to speak louder than these people, and you have to make sure people pick up on that. You can't just, I mean, the media picks up on extreme events. That's what it does. And they will only see the bad members of your community, although, albeit in places like Australia and fucking Sweden and shit, all they do is fucking promote extremists, and that's kind of crazy in my opinion, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. So, but here in America at least, and probably in the UK where feminists are dropping off, not where they're gaining, and they're dropping off at a fucking insane rate, you gotta speak louder than them if you want to move it. If not, you're gonna have to move movements. I think it'd be better for you to leave the movement and join one with similar ideology of not being with less extremists. Something that's not, that doesn't flock extremists of a very specific nature. Something that by the title of it, by actual name, is less biased and less very specific to one group. You know, I mean, that's the only way you're going to get it. Otherwise, you're going to have a repeat of the same thing. That's why the whole Meninist movement, which started out as a parody, ironically, ended up actually garnering a bunch of, sexist men. Because it's Meninist. They hijacked that movement too. That's why the MRA often gets a bad rap. They're confused for the ones that are actually propagating hateful shit. It's the same thing. If you have a movement that's geared towards and represents a very specific group, you're going to have extremists of that very specific group try and hijack it to push a very unfair, very biased, very hateful ideology, and more often than not, they win. That's the problem with movements that are named after a very specific community. It invites the worst of that community. So, thanks for watching. Bye.